Hello and welcome. This is episode 50, 50. Can you believe it? And I am honored and privileged to be joined by Chris L. Terry. Chris L. Terry is the author of the novel Black Card, about a mixed race punk bassist with a black imaginary friend. NPR called Black Card, quote, hilariously searing, and listed it as one of the best books of 2019. Terry's debut novel, Zero Fade, was on Best of 2013 lists by Slate and Kirkus Reviews, who called it, quote, original, hilarious, thought-provoking, and wicked smart, not to be missed, unquote, in a starred review. Terry was born in 1979 to a black father and white mother. In the 90s and aughts, or 2000s, he sang for the Richmond, Virginia punk band Light the Fuse, and Run and Flesh Eating Creeps. Pardon me, Light the Fuse and Run and Flesh Eating Creeps. He now lives in Los Angeles, where he teaches creative writing and works as a screenwriter. His recent writing has appeared in Stereo Gum, Razor Cake, Very Smart Brothers / The Root, Catapult, and the LA or the Land magazine with LA in caps. Chris, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you, Pete?
Pretty good, thanks. It's with having you on my mind, having read some of your recent stuff very recently, including listening to some podcasts. Just a pleasure to have you. Really, to be able to write and be funny is something that I don't know how that's possible. So we'll talk a lot about that in a second.
Oh, thank you.
Oh yeah, right. I mean, writing on being funny on the paper is a whole different ball game. I think it probably just comes naturally to you. But anything else you'd like to add about your bio?
No, I sent you that one, so it's the latest and greatest.
Okay.
The band was called Light the Fuse and Run, like what it says on firecrackers.
Okay.
I didn't come up with the name, actually. The drummer came up with that, and I thought it was, I like it. Sometimes it's easy to be ambivalent about a band name, but I think that's a good one.
Right.
Yeah.
That and in there kind of threw me off, but I get it. I appreciate it.
I was playing with the ampersands and the angs. I didn't. Who knows, man?
My fault.
All bets are off with punctuation these days, I think.
So as
Total anarchy.
Right. That's a pretty good band name. As it says in your bio, you grew up in Richmond, Virginia. And I just want to know kind of, what it was like growing up. On the Stacks podcast, which I was listening to recently, you were thinking, you're like, I don't really know of any books that were written there or about there. I don't want to be putting words in your mouth, but so what was like the literary scene like? What was the music scene like? What were you reading as a kid?
Sure. So I was actually born in Boston, Massachusetts. My mom's from up there. My dad is from Richmond. We moved to Richmond when I was a kid. So I had kind of an outsider perspective on it, and a different accent as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was having that kind of outsider perspective, I think, and also just being really new in a place as an adolescent. I think I was looking for my place in that city, really trying to see myself in certain ways in certain places. But literature wise, so I got an English degree from VCU, which is like the state school there, and they have good basketball team now, so people have heard of them. They also have like a well-known sculpture school, but otherwise than that, it's not like the most well-known school unless you live in VA. Mm-hmm. But I got an English degree there, and there was some stuff going on around Blackbird magazine, which is run by I think the MFA program or the English department at VCU. And there's a couple of really good books there. There's Chop Suey is the one that I spend the most time with. Ward, who runs it, has been a buddy since I was, I guess, for like half my life now. Dang.
Oh wow.
But that was like my first kind of cool, dusty used bookstore that had an interesting, good selection of stuff. It wasn't all like dog-eared Danielle Steele novels or something. Like some thought went into what was going on.
I'm a little offended by that. Okay, those are my favorite type of books. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, it's okay. I mean, we got some steelheads out there, some steelies. I don't want to offend anybody. So literary. I got my English degree and was in Richmond and was like, well, I want to do something besides make lattes for a living. So I should probably try to move to New York and work in publishing. Sure. So like literary stuff wasn't really popping, to me at least, then at that time, which was 20 years ago. I will say, like, James River Writers is the big organization there, and they had just kind of started doing what they do back then. And now they have like an annual festival and they do events throughout the year. I think it's a way better place to be a writer now than it was, in 2003. Music wise, it's a really good city. So first off, in that era, this is pre-gentrification. Richmond was really inexpensive. You could get your own room in a house with a few friends. And but I say a few, that means there could be like between 2 and 8 different people. And probably pay like around $200, if not less, for a room. So you could work a couple nights a week in the kitchen and do stuff with your band, play gigs, go on tours. Richmond's pretty conveniently located. New York is 300 miles away. And in between New York and Richmond, you got Philly, you got Baltimore, DC, places in Jersey. So you could easily do like a week-long tour of the East Coast and never have to drive for more than a couple hours if traffic is good. So it was a good place to be a musician at the time. And it's got a fertile music scene, like for Black music, there's a guy named Plunky who was like a kind of under the radar jazz funk guy that my dad actually went to high school with in the 60s. And it was funny. I saw a review of a re-release of one of his records last year and was like, damn, that's my dad's friend, James. And I was hitting up, I have a couple of friends who are really serious record collectors who know a lot about obscure jazz. And they're like, what, you know that guy? I paid $80 for that LP. What the hell? So there's some kind of interesting under the radar music. D'Angelo, who is, maybe after Prince, my favorite R&B singer. He's from there. And there's, a kind of moving hip hop scene now. I've been gone for a long time, so I can't claim to be like linked to it at all. But like Nicholas F., Fly Anakin, Mutant Academy is kind of a alternative rap crew that's making consistently really cool stuff. Yeah. It's also a huge punk and metal scene, which was kind of more my speed at the time when I lived there. So I don't know if you remember Guar. It was like Beavis and Butthead's favorite band. Yeah. Guar is from there. They were art students at VCU. There's a band called Lamb of God who were from there, who were like a better known metal band. And then, I don't know, Richmond was also just kind of a punk mecca, and that's more of where I was at. In the 90s, when I was in high school, when I was first starting to go to shows and stuff, some of the big bands that I loved were like, there's one called Inquisition, one called Action Patrol. There was one called The Young Pioneers that I really liked. They had almost like a folky element to them. And they like worked in kind of 60s revolutionary Black Panther type of politics, Black Panthers type of politics into the punk music. So that was really special for me as I was kind of working out, liking guitar music and punk and also being a Black person. Because there were a lot of times, especially in that era, when like it seemed like it had to be either or.
Right. Wow. I appreciate that answer. One short question and one longer one is, the short question is, did D'Angelo win that Versus a couple weeks ago? Did you happen to see that one?
D'Angelo was up against himself. He was a solo show, right? Which that being up against himself has stopped D'Angelo before. Honestly, he hasn't always had the easiest life, but it was awesome. I watched that one, and I watched I just watched the Ghostface and Raekwon one, and like the drunk uncle at the end of Thanksgiving energy is just great. It's just like sitting in the chair for a minute, quick drink, get up, do some of the song, get amped, sit down. I liked it. I'm in my 40s. It's nice seeing these guys in their 50s. I'm like, okay, this is how I'm going to be doing it.
Exactly.
This is what I'm working toward.
Right. I feel like I'm 100 years old when Versus comes on. I'm asking my nephew, I'm like, how do you watch it? Do you watch it on YouTube or I guess Instagram Live? I've watched a few, but I've just battled my way through it. But so I didn't know. Is this going to run down my battery? Exactly, right. I didn't know about D'Angelo being from Virginia, but of course, Pharrell. I don't know about Richmond, but Pharrell's from Virginia.
Yeah, so he's from the Virginia Beach Tidewater type of area. Okay. So there's like Norfolk, which is a big military city. Virginia Beach. Okay. There's a handful of cities out there that aren't nearly as cool as Richmond, but they made some of the. I just had to be shady. But they made some of the most kind of forward-thinking like hip hop music in the early 2000s. Missy Elliott's from out there. Pharrell and Chad Hugo, the Neptunes, are from out there. Yes. And Timbaland, the producer, is from out there also. And the Clips, Pusha T and Malice are all from out there. Wow, that's quite a scene. I'd forgotten about some of that. I knew Timbaland, but I forgot about the Clips. That's a big sin for a supposed hip hop head like myself. The longer question, I guess, would be like, and I hate the word. I feel like I should put my nose in the air, my pinky out or something. But the word aesthetic, the difference between maybe like the difference between the punk aesthetic, as he's taking a drink with him, the difference between maybe the punk aesthetic and the metal aesthetic, like.
does punk, have within it just that like F everybody, rebel against the world? Is that necessarily a part of it?
Sort of. It's splitting hairs. From the outside, it's
Okay.
like a bunch of dirty white boys, and some have longer hair than others.
Right.
And
Yeah.
sometimes some have longer songs too. But I
Uh-huh.
would say, I remember I worked in a bakery when I was in high school, and when I was kind of brand new to punk and really, really into it. And I have one coworker that's like, "But you're not punk. Like, you don't have a green mohawk. Punks don't care about anything. Or
Right.
shouldn't you be like smashing a bottle on the wall?" I'm like, "Hey, I'm just trying to make $4.75 an hour making some cinnamon rolls right now. Like, and I like Green Day. Give me a break." But I would say that the punk that I was involved in, it had an emphasis on kind of DIY politics, like
Okay.
do it yourself, very egalitarian,
Mhm.
anti-consumerist, anti-capitalist type of politics. You're in the music, you're playing the music for the love, for the sense of community.
Okay.
At least that's what gets lip service.
Uh-huh.
And metal was a little bit more like, we're cool with getting paid. We'll sell our shirts for more money if that means that we can get dinner after the show. They were honestly probably a little bit more realistic about financial shit of being in a band, which is not easy. I was definitely losing money as a musician, especially in the punk scene. So I mean, those are big differences. Also, in the late 90s, Richmond was the capital of the Confederacy during the Civil War. And there was this kind of, I don't know if resurgence or maybe basically people were like rocking Confederate flags. A lot of metalheads were into some like sketchy, ultimately racist, white supremacist Southern shit. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, Phil Anselmo, the guy from Pantera, or they're from Texas. Okay. They definitely had the kind of Southern pride, heritage, not hatred type of thing. And he also, has a long history of like getting drunk and saying racist white supremacist stuff, Sieg Heiling on stage. And he was kind of like a big figure and also kind of bluesy, sludgy Southern metal type of scene that's kind of based out of New Orleans and trickled its way up through the South into Richmond. Richmond and New Orleans have some stuff in common. So there was like these kind of bluesy white heavy metal bands that were, Southern pride, rocking Confederate flags, which is profoundly alienating when you're, not white.
Yeah.
So that was really sketchy and frustrating and upsetting to have to be around, to have to deal with. So that was a big kind of line between punk and metal. Okay. In my mind, in that era, but also like some of the punk bands were also into that shit, and there's a lot of kind of crossover between the punks and the metal kids in Virginia because, it's a small city, and any sort of alternative cultures, there's going to be some kind of concentric circles and Venn diagrams. And sometimes that's good. I met some people that were into like way more like revolutionary leftist politics than I ever would have thought of. I met like a lot more like queer kids, art kids, things like that. But I was also exposed to, or I also, wasn't really as insulated from straight up racist shit as I would have liked to have been, which is, part of why I wanted to get into punk was that it was like a way of rebelling against what felt like a very racist atmosphere in Richmond. It's the capital of the Confederacy, and people joke about how it feels like it's still fighting the Civil War sometimes. Like that statue of Robert E. Lee that was in the news a lot this summer during all the Black Lives Matter protests. The one that they had George Floyd projected on the side for a few nights. My apartment with my family was literally around the corner from that. Like I'd take a left off my block, and the first thing I saw was Lee's horse's ass right there. So it's just right there. Like it tells you what your city thinks of you. And I was trying to get away from that by getting into punk, and it felt like I couldn't escape it.
Wow. Yeah. What an in your face. I mean, not even a metaphor. I mean, literally in your face, you said you're looking out and seeing that. Wow.
Yeah. I will say, I don't know if appreciated is the word, but it's impossible to deny it when it's like that, and I feel like that also about some of the way politics have been for the last 4 or 5 years. Like it's harder to deny that stuff that, in my gut, I knew was racist for a long time, is racist. And it's kind of the same in the South, especially moving there from New England, where people are more kind of passive. I don't know if passive aggressive, but it isn't as in your face, like, fuck you, nigger, I got a Confederate flag on my truck. What you going to do about it? It's more like, well, maybe you'd be happier somewhere else, Right. It's, and the racism isn't implied. It's just right there. Sure. And sometimes that's easier to work with, honestly.
I see what you
doesn't feel good, but yeah.
I remember talking to a gentleman actually in San Francisco, which is like that supposed paragon of liberalism, et cetera, et cetera. And he was basically saying what you're saying, like, not that he would rather, obviously racism is horrible in whatever way it comes, but he was like, I'd almost rather have people tell me to my face, they don't like me, then some of this stuff that he's telling me about, that's just very subtle and very, how did you say, kind of like, oh, there's maybe somewhere else for you to, to live and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
So you talk about like the lip service of punk, and obviously, just like anything else, it's had its mission was to be leftist or alternative or inclusive, that kind of thing. What's the line from I think it's the Big Lebowski? Flea says, "We're nihilists. We believe in nothing."
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So that was the original, the original architects of punk were saying we believe in nothing, or we believe in the right things, but obviously
Yeah.
maybe evolved or devolved a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's also, for every kind of lefty, politically correct dweeb like me, there's someone who's like, no, it's like all about Sid Vicious and you got to shoot heroin in your eyeballs and
Sure.
break bottles on the wall, like my coworker wanted me to do. Yeah.
And did you, or
break bottles on the wall?
Yeah.
Not in there. I've smashed a few bottles in my time.
All right. Fair enough.
So, but so that would be an example of like the type of punk is like, they'd be like, if you're going to come to the show, you have to respect the space. And if you smash that bottle, someone's going to have to clean it up. And it's probably one of us. Don't make us do that. So anyway.
So my one punk show was at Alex's Bar, which we were talking about before we started recording.
Yeah.
Went with a friend who's a big fan of punk and played in a band. Not my thing. Literally neutral. Don't know much about it. Don't hate it. But it was very interesting because I was at the time probably 31. And I think I was the youngest by like 15 or 16 years there. And it was kind of like remember the 70s type of show. So it was very interesting. It's very, very microcosm, or a lot of subcultures going on there. It was very interesting.
Yeah. I heard that Long Beach is a good punk retirement community. People joke about
retirement community. I like that.
Pink dye on gray hair and whatnot. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You talked about like Sid Vicious. I'm thinking again of my amateur knowledge of like Bad Religion, maybe. You said Green Day. Who was like kind of like your gateway drug into punk?
Yeah. It was kind of through skateboarding. I was like a hip hop kid who liked skateboarding before that was such a common thing. But like, I think I got a Fugazi tape and I got a Nirvana tape for Christmas when I was 12. So that was like Nevermind by Nirvana.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of worked backwards from Fugazi to Minor Threat, which was, the kind of DC hardcore band. And also, Nirvana figuring out what bands Kurt Cobain was talking about. So sometimes that was the Vaselines or the Meat Puppets. And sometimes it was something punker sounding like the Wipers. So that was kind of my gateway drug. Then I did the thing where, I'd get money, I'd get some Christmas money or some birthday money or something. And I'd want to spend it on music. And I'd go to the record store. This is, before the internet. And be like, well, I want to hear what Black Flag sounds like because everyone's talking about this in Thrasher magazine, or I heard that they're a punk band, but I'm going to get the cheapest tape possible. And then that's like also the worst one. And it's, like 4 songs from right before they broke up. And I'm like, this is what punk's supposed to sound like. And, I would just kind of listen to it until I liked it.
I wonder where on your radar, if at all, and I hope they're punk. Again, not know my genres extremely well. Fishbone, where would Fishbone have fallen?
I don't know exactly. They were like alternative, kind of punky ska. Yeah, they're cool. I like them. Yeah, it doesn't have to be punk for me to like it, for certain.
Because when you're talking early 90s, I'm thinking one of the greatest soundtracks of The Last Action Hero. That soundtrack.
No, I think I remember that it had I remember that movie was like a cool movie, but
it was one of the Arnold movies, and but it had a great soundtrack. And I remember Fishbone was my introduction to them, was on that one. So
that's great.
Alice in Chains as well. So
great band.
Very cool, very cool. So going from music to the writing life.
Yeah.
It sounds like, you toured and everything like that in Europe, and I think you said in Canada as well, and of course the US.
Yeah.
Right? Where did were you writing songs? Like, where did the writing bug come from to take you from music into writing books?
So when I was about 9, we did our first creative writing assignment at school, and I really liked it. This would have been 3rd grade, and that's also when I started getting interested in music. And my dad's a guitar player and a music geek, so he was very supportive of that and was, buying me tapes and records of popular music that I was asking about. A lot of the time, that was like hair metal, like Guns N' Roses or Warrant, or the type of rap that was popular at the time, Run DMC, the Beastie Boys. And then at the same time, my mom's a librarian, and I was a eager and young reader, so I was just constantly reading books. And by the time I was in college, I knew I wanted to be a writer. I think even in high school, I knew I wanted to be a writer, and I liked doing band stuff. And I figured that the band stuff was like right in front of me. And in punk,
Sure.
there's kind of a low bar to entry. It's like anyone can do it. This is good. It's cool. Don't, and it's okay to be amateurish. And since that was right there, and it was exciting, and it was something I could do with other people because I was a pretty lonely person, I kind of fell right into band stuff. But in the back of my head, I was like, I don't want to be the old guy who's trying to rock out. So I want to eventually kind of pivot to writing when it feels like the band stuff is losing steam. So that's what I did pretty much in my mid-20s.
Well, I thought that was interesting. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about the book and how much of it is autobiographical and whatever, but I thought it was really interesting. I mean, I felt his pain, if you will, but the main character in Blackheart, and he's like 21, which to me is not that old at all, and he's kind of like, oh man, looking around like, am I the old guy at the party type of thing. So I thought that was very interesting.
I had similar feelings. Richmond, a lot of the punk scene is kind of based around the college. Okay. So if you're past college age, like suddenly you're old.
I see.
Yeah, I remember. I think I remember trying to get that in there. There's a scene where he's watching a younger band. It's like a bunch of 19-year-olds who are, 2 years younger than him, and they're all babies. Yeah, I could be their dad by now, but yeah, I wanted to get that in there. That it seems like that sort of lifestyle, it could have an expiration date on it, or it could kind of turn into like a trapped in amber, arrested adolescence type of thing. Yeah,
that makes sense. As far as your mom being a librarian, I mean, is there a group of people in the world who love their job more than librarians?
Right? Yeah, it's true.
I think a lot of that maybe was pre-internet and Dewey Decimal days. I mean, remember, like, oh yeah, history, 700, like, just so excited to show you things. And I have just I mean, good for your mom. I think you'd said that she specifically worked with pre-literacy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I have great memories of librarians, and they were just so formative for me and obviously for you as well.
Yeah, I can still picture my mom had this tote bag. It was like this kind of purplish navy blue color with an orange strap, and the outside pocket had this like woven rainbow on it. Okay. And we would take that to the library every 3 weeks and just load it up with books. Yeah, and I remember there was like the library in our town would do a reading challenge every summer, and I went past the highest number that they might have predicted, But I was also reading my younger sister's picture books and stuff just to juice the stats, if you will.
That's not fair. That's not fair. It's a good transition into the idea of the Chills at Will podcast and those books, those texts, those poems, even song lyrics. What are some that really gave you chills at will that you were like, like a hip hop head remembering a line and like repeating it? What were some of those books, or who were some of those authors who just thrilled you?
Right. So I mean, I feel like I'm always trying to move forward with what I'm reading. I want to read new stuff, and I don't look back a whole lot because you probably notice this too. The deeper you get into books and the deeper you get into literature, the more you realize there is. Yes. So I don't look back a whole lot, but I'm two that I return to a lot are Sonny's Blues by James Baldwin.
Okay.
And also, I think it's called Red Wind by Raymond Chandler. It's like a longer short story that he wrote. It opens with this great line about the Santa Ana winds making everyone feel murderous, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, that's like a pretty standard private eye type of story where like, oh, surprise, this woman killed some people. Ooh, femme fatale. And I don't love the sexual politics of it, or the way that the character treats people who aren't white men. But I love the prose. I love Chandler's prose, and that's something. Just that strong POV, I think, is really, really valuable. I reread The Long Goodbye over the holidays. Also, it was the same. I might try to teach. There's a really great sense of place in one scene where he's like going up to this abandoned ranch and getting shot at. But Sonny's Blues. I'm not really a short story writer. I don't have an easy time writing short fiction, short pieces, because I don't know. I like thinking of stories as not just moving forward, but also going sideways a whole lot. And there's not always a lot of room to do that in a short story. So I think I like Sonny's Blues because it's not entirely classifiable. I want to say it's like 40 something pages long. So I don't know what exactly a novella is. I feel like everyone has a different definition, but it's at least twice as long as a short story is generally thought to be now. And it's also, it's kind of elliptical. It isn't, I'm not the most subtle dude, honestly. I skew pretty blunt, and I think a lot of my art does too. But there's just such nice imagery there that, it my emotions plugged right into it reading it. I like revisiting it and enjoying that subtlety and enjoying those images and seeing what else comes out in the layers. And it's especially an interesting one to read as I get, a bit older. I'm in my 40s now, and it's about this like concerned older brother. It's about this adult that's kind of a little bit out of touch and like is in a certain way like coming to understand this hip young stuff that his younger brother likes too. And I appreciate that perspective. So those are two things that I go to a lot.
Awesome. I wonder if you've seen the documentary on James Baldwin.
No.
It's based on one of his books. I was just going to ask if you thought it kind of matched up with the literature. He just seems like one of those guys. I mean, I hate to say like ahead of his time, but just like where he obviously because of just straight racism did not receive a scintilla of the credibility or the reputation that he should have. I know he was very popular at the time and very well respected, but he just seems like one of those guys who just wakes up in the morning and is just brilliant.
Yeah.
Philosophically minded and the whole thing. So I know I need to read Sonny's Blues. That's one of them that I'm embarrassed about that I haven't as well.
There's a lot of books out there. Don't worry about it. Yeah,
exactly. And I have not read the Raynham and Chandler piece you talked about, but I know the line. I've heard the line been dissected many, many times. So the one that we said about the Santa Ana winds and all that.
Yeah.
I love lines like that. Great starts. So you are, we're kind of going in order here, but you're a screenwriter as well because you're working on screenplay for Black Card. Am I behind the times on that, or is that current?
No, that's current. I don't know exactly how to. I'm new to this, and I don't know exactly what information it's like cool to share or unprofessional to share.
Feel free, whatever.
But so I had this balance of like I don't want to ruin it, but I also want to flex on people and brag. So,
right.
But yeah, so I'm pretty new to screenwriting. I like writing dialogue, and I'm enjoying the kind of imposed sense of structure. Also, I act like I'm a rebel that doesn't like rules or whatever, but having parameters to work within, I find to be very freeing. I got the book got optioned before it came out, and so I've been working with the people who optioned it. They're from a cable network, but they want to produce it on another platform, so that's a little bit confusing. But they had me. It was actually maybe a week before all the lockdown stuff started last year. When I was sitting outside the hotel at AWP waiting for Doug so I could get into a room, and I had a call with the people.
Sorry, that's the great F. Douglas Brown he's referring to.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, F. Douglas Brown, my AWP roommate who does Lucius's voice sometimes when I do readings, and is a great poet here in Los Angeles. You need to check out his stuff. But
heck yeah.
I had actually had a call with the people who optioned it right before I got into the hotel, and they were like, "Yeah, start writing that script." So that's been my job for the last year, and it's like the dream job, man. I'm not spending time doing stuff I don't want to do right now. I'm busy doing stuff I like, which is just such a great feeling, and also extra helpful now when I'm at home and my free time is limited.
Right.
And it would be really hard to be like dragging myself to write ads, which was my day job as of a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I appreciate that background. And again, you don't need to break any NDAs or anything like that. I guess I'm just asking, and you answered part of it because I'm wondering about the idea of the structure. It's an example from like a children's book, but I remember when I took writing for children in college, and the professor had a great image where she showed this book that was very beautiful and had to do with families and kids could learn from it, and then flipped it around and there's the barcode, right? This idea of there's the aesthetic beauty and there's also you trying to sell it.
Sure.
Right? It's also a product. So
yeah.
I heard you discuss a little bit of this, I think, on another podcast, but I wonder like how much of it is you feel like this is my artistic sensibility versus like I gotta hit a mass market or the public. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm used to getting kind of input and edits on my writing. I worked as a corporate like marketing writer for 5 or 6 years there. And I used to be a proofreader before that. So I'm used to the idea of making something and losing ownership of it in a lot of ways, or making something kind of for hire. I think, the book's my baby. That was what I worked on. That came out of my brain and went onto the page. And, I worked with editors on it. I showed it to my writing group. But the path to, there are less less hurdles between, having a book in a manuscript and a book on a bookshelf in a bookstore.
Sure.
Than there are between, having an idea for a script and seeing that thing on a screen. And so I'm just trying to play nice with people as much as I can. I mean, the book's my baby, and the script is like a learning opportunity. It's it's an amazing job to have. And this is also, I'm new to writing scripts, so it's a learning experience. I'm working with some producers on the script who are pros, and I'd be stupid not to listen to them. I'm basically getting a free education. And if this thing doesn't work out, hopefully making some good connections also. And learning a lot in the process. We were just talking to somebody, so it's not guaranteed that this is anything is going to happen with this beyond the script, but we were talking to a potential director just yesterday, and he had some great ideas for the script. He's like, I think this would hit harder if you like switch this thing around. And I'm like, yep, you're completely right. And I'm a little bit mad that I can't change the book now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. You said, yeah, before he even finished his thing, right? Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. I was kind of thinking out loud. I was thinking like, who would be a good Mona? Who would be a good Lucius? So that'd be interesting to see if it does get to the screen, who would play them. That's interesting.
Well, thank you. Yeah, my frames of reference for actors are all pretty dated, and everyone in the book is so young. I know that like we just had Daniel Kaluuya playing Fred Hampton, and Fred Hampton was like 20, and Daniel Kaluuya is not. So British, there's some room to stretch. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Really, he's so good.
He is incredible.
But yes, so I don't know. Like I initially pictured Lucius as kind of a mix between young Ghostface Killah and like Brian Tyree Henry, who plays Paperboy on Atlanta. Kind of expressive eyes, maybe like a little bit over it, like a little bit impatient.
I could see that.
Like kind of a like coiled snake type of intensity, you could say.
Okay.
The script he's more energetic in the script. Yeah, I saw. Okay. Russell is kind of like a younger Jonah Hill, like Superbad era, kind of mouthy, insecure, know-it-all. Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds Mona. I don't know. Like maybe God, is her name Jessica Williams, one of the two dope queens? Yeah, I could see her doing it.
Okay, I don't know much about her other than I know who she is. Okay. Very cool. Well, yeah, let's get into the writing. Blackheart was not your first. You also had a very highly acclaimed, 2013, which was Zero Fade, which is the haircut that I used to get, I guess, right? Well, can you tell us a little bit about the book? Was that, how much of that was, I know it's fictional, how much of that was, I guess, where did the inspiration come from, and what was that book all about?
Sure. So Zero Fade, it's a young adult novel. It follows roughly a week in the life of a 13-year-old boy. The main themes are like his misconceptions about adulthood and masculinity. The two things, one of the main sources of tension is that the kid is a homophobe, and I'm in 7th grade, and the idea of anyone being gay is just way too advanced for me. I can hardly even talk to girls.
Right.
He's that type of way.
Yes.
And his uncle, who is his father figure, is in the process of coming out. Also, his mom is a single mom, and she is starting to date. So he's kind of got these ideas of what things might be like, or what things should be like, and the realities of the adults in his life are messing with that.
Oh wow!
So that's pretty much what it's about. It's set in Richmond, Virginia, also, and I think I got the idea. I started writing a scene that ended up being placed toward the end of the book, about a kid who's at the mall. Like their mom sends him to the movies, and his sister's like, let's just take this ticket money and go hang out at the mall, and then they start shoplifting. So I started writing that, and I just felt intrigued by the characters and compelled, and I had ideas for ways to mess with the main character, and that I felt like would maybe turn into a book, and it did. It was my thesis at Columbia College Chicago, where I got my MFA. Yeah.
Well, I've heard you say before that you're very character driven in your writing, and I mean, Mona's a great character. Mona's one of my favorite. I mean, all your characters are really well drawn, and it sounds like the character from Zero Fade, the main character as well.
Thank you.
How you make them relatable. You talk about homophobia. It's not the horrible hating. It's the I'm ignorant. I literally don't know any better, and hopefully someone teaches them kind of thing, right?
Yeah. He learns.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. And I wanted to discuss, of course, Blackheart. I think maybe first, you wrote an article for Catapult magazine? Was that Tragic Gentrification Mulatto?
Yeah. So
Okay,
Catapult also has a lit mag, and they've hired me to
right.
write a column. I just turned in the second one yesterday.
Right. And I thought it was, I mean, it was so well done. There's so many layers to it. I mean, we could discuss that for hours. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you start off the article and you write, I occupy an unusual space, black enough to be terrified of the police. I'm sorry, you don't start off with this, but it's pretty dang close. Black enough to be terrified of the police, but white enough to not get pulled over for driving while black. A little bit later on, you write, I say I want to fit in with black people, but here's the thing. No black person fits in with all black people. We're not all the same. Some of us are cool, some of us are assholes, and it's all subjective. So when I'm around my people, I'm still looking for my people. And so it's a lot of it is about living in, I want to say, View Park,
Yeah.
right? I wonder if you could maybe describe the neighborhood a little bit and how you came to it and what kind of its history.
Sure. So I live in View Park, which is part of LA County. I could like kick a football into the city. And it's an affluent African American area. Over the last maybe for like 2 or 3 generations before me, black people with money bought houses here. So I go running and I go past the mansion from Ray Charles's old house, the one that's
Mm-hmm.
in the movie Ray.
Mm-hmm.
Ike and Tina Turner's old house. So there's some like celebrities and performers, and also doctors, lawyers, people, feds, people who got like government jobs and moved up and made money, which has been a way that a lot of black people have moved into the upper middle class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's so let's see. The first time I heard about it would be in maybe 2012, and Frank Ocean has a song about living in Ladera Heights, the Black Beverly
Oh,
Hills.
okay.
That's one neighborhood over. It's kind of a belt
Sure.
of affluent African American neighborhoods around here.
Mm-hmm.
It's Baldwin Hills,
Baldwin
View
Hills, of course.
Park, and Ladera Heights are the three with the most name recognition. Um, but we moved here uh, in 2015. We've been in LA for a little over a year, and uh, we were looking for a bigger apartment and found one here. And we're coming in, and I'm like, man, this is really nice and exciting and familiar. Like the black side of my family has money, not like super duper rich, but
Mm-hmm.
people are college educated, middle class and upper middle class. And so some of the stuff in the neighborhood just felt familiar. The black people I was seeing looked like my extended family.
Hmm.
And yeah, so it felt like coming home in a certain way, in a way that I didn't expect to find anywhere, honestly. Like I couldn't think of a place I'd rather be, I don't think. And it's good. And I guess the essay kind of talks about the dissonance of like being a newcomer in this area that has this like entrenched community feeling, an entrenched blackness. And then the extra tension of not only being a newcomer, but like I'm pretty pale. To a lot of people, I look like a white man. I'm mixed. I got a white mom. And also my wife is white and our kid is pale. So I'm kind of part of the problem, but also in the place that I think is the right place for me. Like I said, I couldn't think of somewhere else that I would want to be as much.
Right.
Yeah, so I think the essay kind of explores that tension. And also, so what's going on now is the neighborhood is gentrifying. And often, you think of gentrification as happening as where like a lower income area becomes expensive. But in this case, it's like a already pretty affluent area is just Caucasians are moving in. Like I'm 42. If you're a little younger than me, and you live here, you're probably white. If you're a little older than me, you're probably black. Yeah. And there's another layer is that we're renting and we don't own the place. Wealth on display there's a lot of wealth in Los Angeles and we don't have that.
Yes.
And so that's another kind of odd layer to be around all this wealth on display. And you feel a certain pressure to keep up with the Joneses, I guess. And, not being able to do it. I can't just snap my fingers and get rich or have a rich dad.
Well, I appreciate that background, and what makes the article or the essay so great is yeah, there are so many layers, and also that you really do put yourself out there. I mean, you're honest about yourself. You're like, this is me. This is what's happened. Maybe kind of working backwards. It's towards the end of the article. There's that, for me, it was just an incredible image. It was, correct me if I'm wrong. It's like you're running, as you like to do, right? And there's this kind of older gentleman, maybe a military vet, older black man, and a younger white woman. And it's so you've got the different generations. I mean, I'll put you in with the young people, of course, right?
Thank you.
Right? So you got the older gentleman who's seen some incredible things in his life, I'm sure. Gone through the civil rights movement, who knows how old he is. This woman you talk about who maybe is representative of like the younger like gentrifying classes.
Yeah.
And the man was kind of like apologizing to the woman or telling the woman about the neighborhood, kind of like speaking on behalf of all Black people, kind of like trying to take care of her almost. I don't know if I'm describing that very well.
Yeah. So this
Like,
is,
I'm sorry,
this
like
is,
kind of like looking out for her maybe.
yeah. I mean, so this is one conversation that I had, 6 years ago, and it gave me a certain feeling, but I can't speak for exactly what everyone was doing.
Uh-huh.
But, I was, it felt like some of the stuff that the guy was saying was indicative of some of the classism that I sense in, among Black people with money. Because there's that kind of, it's like, there's a Kanye West lyric, which I think I quote in the song, or in the essay rather, where Kanye, rest in peace, by the way. This is a pre super problematic Kanye, just kind of problematic. But he says, even if you're a Benz, you're still a nigger in a coupe. Because you can be Black and you can come up, you can make money, you can be a doctor, and to the police, to the white world, that doesn't matter. You're still a Black person. You're still just one of them, And so I think sometimes if you're Black with money, there can be kind of an impulse to like separate yourself from other Black people, to be like, but I'm not one of them. I didn't go to Harvard to get treated like this, or I'm not. I see. I didn't become a lawyer to be treated like this. And I sense some of that was going on with him, because we live, really near Crenshaw Boulevard, which is like the kind of Black main drag in Los Angeles. Like you could say it's, if you have the East Coast bias, it's like our 125th Street or something. And you go right across Crenshaw, and like the houses get smaller, and it gets a little bit more hood. And he was talking about the uprising around the Rodney King verdict, and saying that there was like a line of police that kept rioters or people who were protesters from crossing Crenshaw from coming in the neighborhood. And it kind of laid down this like us versus them line. Yeah. And I don't know why he was telling us that. I can't get into his brain that far. It seemed like he wanted his neighbors to feel comfortable in the neighborhood, his new neighbors. And that was his way of doing it. It was, I found it very troubling on multiple layers, or multiple levels.
Well, I appreciate that too. I don't know if it's quite Socratic, but the idea of like, you don't have all the answers. And, I like you said, that scene was just so interesting, troubling, all the above. And I couldn't tell you exactly why. And you said, I don't know exactly why. I've got 5 or 6 different things going through it. So that's life, right? Is that we don't necessarily have all the answers. And it definitely made me think, and I'm sure it made all the other readers think. So
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, 2 thoughts about that. Mensa Damari, who edited Black Card, we were talking about essays, because I was trying and failing to write some essays to try to publish around when Black Card was coming out and having a tough time. And he said that he likes ones that raise questions more than answer them.
Right.
So that's kind of been my, one of my rules as I go. And another one is, speaking of being honest, if you're going to be hard on somebody or on something in an essay, then you need to be just as hard, if not harder, on yourself. So that's what I try to do. I try to examine myself and my place and my perspective in the essay, and see what I can share about myself, how I can put myself out there so I don't emerge unscathed. So it doesn't sound like I'm just like taking shots at people.
Right. Yeah. You've also set some new eras or some new paradigms with, problematic Kanye, PK, SPK. I know. Yeah. There's 2016 or so, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. In my head, I just pretend like he died in 2013, and we're not sure if Jesus is finished or if it was totally supposed to sound like that.
Because he had some incredible stuff before, but now, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, like speaking of middle class Black perspectives, like that meant so much to me to hear that music, to get when his first albums were coming out in the early mid 2000s, like that really, really spoke to me. And really, it was a time when I was, in my mid 20s. It's embarrassing to be that old and still kind of figuring out your identity, but sometimes that's what happens when you're mixed. And like that was like, this is a way I saw myself in the Blackness that he was portraying at that time. So it was, things got very disappointing after a decade or so though.
I was a young teacher, so I'm 23, 24, and Kanye just hit big, 2004 or so.
Yeah.
I still, I get it, the whole idea of like the backpacker, he was the backpacker, that was his thing. But I have so many students who just identify with that so much. Like you talk about just whatever, so many things about Kanye they just loved. He he himself said he wasn't the stereotypical rapper of that time, but anyway.
Yeah. I like that self-deprecation kind of worked its way back into hip hop right then. And
exactly.
That's a source of humor, a great one.
Right. We'll have to leave Kanye for now.
Bye.
Bye. Right. So I'm not the only one who loved Black Card. NPR named it one of their best books of the year. And they say that in this book, a mixed race punk rock musician must face the real dangers of being Black in America in this wise meditation on race, authenticity, and belonging. It's described as an uncompromising examination of American identity. Identity's come up already a few times. In an effort to be, quote, Black enough, a mixed rock punk musician indulges his own stereotypical views of African-American life by doing what his white bandmates call, quote, Black stuff. After remaining silent during a racist incident, the unnamed narrator has his Black card revoked by Lucius, his guide through Richmond, Virginia, where Confederate flags and memorials are part of everyday life. Can I ask you real quick, that just brought up something, and that was, I forget what it was. I just saw something in there that, oh boy, I'm getting old. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. So the unnamed narrator, is this like, was it, I think Chekhov would do that, or Chekhov did like a blank.
Oh, really?
You know, the idea of like, is it every man? Is it, I could put myself in his shoes? What was the idea of the unnamed narrator?
Well, I haven't really read Chekhov, so I don't. It was two things. It was a tribute to Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, where the narrator doesn't have a name either. And at one point I was thinking it would be cool to write a mixed race Invisible Man. And then as I was working on this book, I was like, well, you know, mixed race Black experiences are still Black experiences. They are Black experiences. So, you know, it's kind of one and the same in certain ways. The idea that like, it's kind of impossible to know yourself. You lose your sense of your identity and yourself when people are projecting all of their ideas about you onto you, when that's such a, you know, aggressive aspect of your life. It's very unmooring. And so I wanted him to be slightly mysterious in that way, just with no name.
Maybe skipping ahead a little bit, but you talking about the Invisible Man. You know, I mean, as a white suburban kid in high school, I mean, reading the Battle Royale scene, I mean, I'll never forget it. I mean, it's just one of those just unbelievably formative, influential times. And so when I read the scene in the karaoke bar, I went there.
Oh, really?
And obviously it's, you know, the Invisible Man is way more intense. I mean, they're literally fighting and getting electrocuted as they pick the coins up and all that. I just thought about that. You know, you have the drunk women kind of hanging off the main guy and saying, you know, like just telling him what to do. Telling him what to do. Here's how you should act. I don't know if I'm asking if that was influenced by Invisible Man, but maybe we can skip to that scene. That's one of the scenes where it's performative, right? Where he feels like I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't, type of thing. I wonder if you can describe that scene, maybe.
I was. So I do think a lot of the book is about performance. You know, he's performing music. He's finding ways to perform Blackness in a way that he thinks will make him seem Blacker. You know, he has this kind of pop culture informed idea of Blackness. He's an isolated Black person. So for every like Black person in his life, he's also got 2 or 3 images he got off of, you know, television, movies, radio, the stuff that kind of passed the white gatekeepers that isn't always the most, you know, it's a pretty narrow and not necessarily flattering idea of Blackness. And he's kind of confused or unmoored because he doesn't necessarily see himself in that. You know, he's like, can I be Black and not be like Lil Jon and the East Side Boys? No knock on them, they're terrific, but they're not everybody. So he's kind of bumping up against the narrow ideas of Blackness in pop culture. And the kind of pressure to perform a certain type of Blackness, to perform something for white people that expect Black people to be a certain way, and kind of being too lonely or insecure or isolated to tell those people to get lost. You know, he doesn't know who he is to the point where, like, if this is how people expect him to act, and he's like, well, maybe this is who I am, and I just don't see it yet. Do I need to listen to these people? That's what I was going for with that. Also, like, he's, you know, like a reasonably horny guy in his early 20s, and he's getting attention from some women. And so it's kind of like, yeah, I'll go along with this. What the hell?
Yeah. One of the reviews of your book was saying that what made it so good was that, you know, you are, as the author, thinking steps ahead, or like, the reader doesn't see something coming until, not that it's too late, but like it's been building, right?
Mhm.
And I saw that with just the way that he is so conflicted about, like, do I do this? It would be fun, but history gets in the way. I'm expected to do this. And of
Mhm.
course it's almost funny that he does what Baby Got Back, and we've all been at the karaoke bar and like, yeah, do I pick that one? Do I pick, that was such a great scene. So maybe skipping back to the beginning a bit. So we have Lucius, who is not real.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm hoping most readers picked it up fairly soon, but it's not like it ruins things. It makes the book even better.
Thank you.
Right? You're wondering why. What exactly is he doing? But the first couple sentences, um, sorry, the first part of the book, he earns his black card.
Mhm.
What is a black card?
Sure.
Why did you give that title? What is that actual thing?
Yeah. So put your wallet away. This isn't about the credit cards.
It's not the Jay-Z one.
Right. Oh yeah. It's a black card. It's the idea of a membership to the black race, to black culture. It's a symbolic thing. If you're black enough, you have your black card, and it can be revoked. If you're if you're looking out for the other man instead of the brother man, basically, if you're not being a good black person, if you're not also fighting racism or acting in solidarity with other black people, then you're not really part of the race, part of the culture, and so your black card gets revoked. So I was playing with that in the book, and I made an actual physical black card for it, as kind of to represent the main character's his blackness. And I think Lucius also represents like his idealized idea of blackness, and Lucius kind of evolves over the course of the story to become a little more nuanced. Yeah.
First of all, I mean, Lucius totally had the right idea, like sandals with socks.
Oh yeah.
I mean, especially men, right? Our feet are men should never not wear socks. But anyway, right? I mean, that made me laugh out loud when I was like, yes.
Yeah, but my feet look like hammerhead sharks. I'm scared to show them off in public.
Same.
You also cannot kick a cop in the face if you're wearing sandals, which is another thing you got to remember. Yeah.
So it's a great plot device in that he loses the black card kind of early on in the book, and so therefore, like, okay, I'm going to go try to get it back as the book goes through, right? So there's some really great characters. Lucius is one, whether he's real or not. There's Mona, who is what I really like about Mona. Mona's the coworker, right, at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
The main character. What I really like is that you don't describe her physically that much. Is that she's not commodified or sexualized or whatever you want to. Obviously, the guy wants to get with her. He's, like you said, a college guy, but you'd really describe a lot about what she's like. And she's just a cool character, kind of hippie-ish, right?
Yeah.
How did you draw out Mona? What was your plan for her, I guess?
Yeah. I wanted Mona to be a black person, like full on, not mixed black person who grew up around white people and likes some white shit. Like she's kind of a hippie, and she has white friends. She has some black friends too. But she's comfortable with that. She isn't torn up about it the way that the main character is. Right. So I wanted her to be kind of aspirational in a certain way for the main character. I wanted her to seem like an accessible black person for the main character, because the stuff that she was doing or the stuff that she was into was kind of familiar to the main character. And so I wanted there to be some tension there between, like, does he actually like her, or does he just want like a black friend and or girlfriend? And he's kind of, so is he tokenizing her, or the book plays with the idea of magical Negroes. In real life, that's like a plot device where there's a black person that shows up in a story just to help white people, then kind of goes away, like in Bagger Vance, that Will Smith movie where he's a golfer. But I was kind of expanding the definition of magical Negro in the book. Like Lucius, the imaginary friend, is a magical Negro who acts as the main character's brain's access to like this kind of collective consciousness with other black people. And then the main character is also making Mona into a magical Negro by being she's like the black person that I'm going to dump all of my questions and thoughts and insecurities about blackness onto. That happens if you're like the black friend to people. Sometimes you get the questions. Sometimes it's about some slang that you have no idea what it is either. Sometimes it's about some kind of stereotypical Black culture stuff. Why do Black people always do this? It's like, we do. What are you fucking talking about? So I wanted him to do like a Black on Black version of that with Mona also, and make her a magical Negro in that way. So that was something else that I wanted to get going with her. And finally, I wanted her to go through all this stuff and then just get out. She, at the end, like she's on another path, and she just kind of stops by this dude's life. Some rough stuff happens to her, some very traumatic stuff, and she like moves through that, and moves on to the next thing, and is able to progress with her life. And the main character, I think at one point there's a line I talk about how in 5 or 10 years she's going to be at a dinner party talking about how she used to work at this quirky coffee shop, and in 5 or 10 years the main character might still be quirky at a coffee shop.
Right.
Yeah, so I wanted to show her as having this kind of mobility that he didn't have, and even that was kind of attractive to him.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I thought there was a real light, subtle touch with Mona, and yeah, it wasn't like there was a going away party and he was on his knees saying please stay. It was like you said, it's almost like episodic, like just part of like a vignette in their lives, like you said,
yeah,
kind of moving on, and she learned some things and obviously had some traumatic experiences, but it wasn't everything.
Yeah, and he blew it, and she's like, yeah, never mind you. You seem cool at first, but then yeah.
I think maybe one of the times I was the most mad in the book was when he didn't go visit her in the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so that shows that we really grew to love those characters, and it was like you wanted Mona to have a visitor.
Yeah.
Instead of Russell, and so we have the main character is a punk rocker, and he he is, like you said, that one who a lot of the questions are dumped on him, being that he is in the most proximity to Blackness, right? And there's that, I mean, cringeworthy doesn't begin to describe it. There's the scene in North Carolina, right, where he's, I guess, kind of having dinner or having a drink after a show with like somebody who's tangentially related to the band. And I believe it's the father just throws off a totally casual racist slur.
Yeah.
And that was a scene that was obviously very affecting because it was, the way that he said it. And later on, the kid, the youngster, kind of apologizes to the main character, and he's doubly surprised that the main character is Black. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
And so that really made me think like about all that cringiness. Like, it's still terrible. Like, would it be worse or better if he were talking to a white person? Of course not.
Yeah.
Right. But there's, again, so many layers in the stuff you write. So I wonder where that scene came from.
I mean, I'm thinking about other times where I've been a little incognito, and people thought I was white and started saying racist stuff about Black people. I mean, there have been other times where people just started saying racist stuff about Black people, and they might have known I was Black. I think that doesn't always stop people. Yeah, you don't always. I think sometimes when you're Black, never mind ethnically ambiguous like I am, like sometimes there's that tension between people know you as an individual, so they don't see you as, you're different from the rest of them in their head.
Was it
you're not one of them. What's that?
Was it O.J. Simpson who said, I'm not Black, I'm O.J.?
Yeah. That didn't work out too good for him.
No,
but
no.
Yeah, but it is that idea. It's like, people will be racist against a whole group of Black people, but when they're confronted with a single individual Black person, they don't make the connection that like they're being racist against an entire group of people, a group of individuals, just like the person in front of them.
Sure. I
wanted to get some of that in there, and I thought I wanted to have the JJ is the guy whose dad is saying the racist stuff. They're supposed to crash at his house after the gig. And I wanted JJ to be like trying to save face. Like what he's doing, it's more like he doesn't want word to get out that his band is problematic, that his band is racist. So he's like, I got to apologize to these guys and like separate that so it doesn't mess with my career as it may be. And then it kind of gets more complex for him when he realizes he was, his family was saying that around actual real live Black person.
There's a scene in Goodfellas, the scene where the poor guy gets stomped out in the bar.
Jeez, I haven't seen that movie. Okay. I hate mobster shit for some reason.
I hear you. I hear you. But he's a mobster, like a mobster do, and he's cussing up a storm, and he, being the quote unquote gentleman that he is, says, "Excuse me, excuse my language, ladies," right? Right, because he's a gentleman. So
right.
But yeah, just this idea of like, I think of like, what if JJ's dad were to apologize? Like, is it I'm apologizing that I got caught? Is it apologizing like, ooh, I would have talked like that, but I didn't know you were here?
Yeah. I think if you have to apologize, then you're probably not sorry. I think that's generally, I just generally don't believe apologies ever. Like, you got to apologize with your actions, and you can't do that immediately. It's going to take a while.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder who your audience was. Is it fair to call it a coming of age book, or is that kind of limiting?
No, I mean, I think it is a coming of age, and you could say coming of race also.
Did you just coin that? Did you just coin that term?
Maybe I'll take it.
Okay.
Yeah. Put my name on the Wikipedia for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. I think, I mean, it is coming of age. It's about a young person who's understanding their place in the world a little bit more. Yeah, and intended audience. I was thinking about that just now. It's like, in my head, I was writing this book. I'm like, I'm writing this for me. Wanted to write a book that I would have loved to have seen when I was younger. When I was looking for stuff where I felt like I was represented on the page. And I brought the book out into the world, and the people that responded to it best, I've had other people who have been like the Black friend, or Black punks, mixed race people, have responded strongly, because a lot of those experiences, are other people go through them too. And the other people that it seems to hit pretty well with are like Gen Xers who are into alternative culture, and like older millennials who are into like alternative culture, and like being able to kind of think about race and white supremacy through the lens of this like familiar, edgy, like punk culture kind of. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But of course, the audience is also, and anyone that's would like to read a slamming book. Yes. So if you're not a Gen Xer or someone who's been the Black friend, you can still get the book. I will not complain.
The book is universal. The great books are specific. So I know that people specific subcultures, if you will love the book, and it's also universal. Just, I mean, identity for everyone. Identity as a young person. Then you talk about being, am I Black enough, mixed race, biracial, etc. It checks all of those boxes for sure.
Thank you.
Oh yes, and it's gonna become a heck of a movie. What hope it makes it to the screen or to the TV screen.
That would be dope. Yes.
Right.
I got student loans, man. Come on.
I wonder, besides that, kind of what you're looking at down the road as far as future projects, and you can keep it close to the vest if you don't want to share them out there.
Yeah. I'm working on another novel. I'm hoping to send like a decent 50-60 pages to my writing group by the end of the month.
Okay.
And I'm writing these essays for Catapult. So that was the first. They hired me to write 3. The tragic gentrification mulatto one was the first of 3. And so I got to write 2 more. I just turned in a draft of the next one. Hopefully it makes sense. I kind of got so far into it that I got so deep inside the house I couldn't see what color it was on the outside anymore. Doing some other screenwriting stuff, and it's kind of getting to a make or break point with the Black Card project. I joined the Writers Guild, so hopefully I can get hired to do more stuff like that in the future. But yeah, just trying to get another novel done. That's my space where I can make my brain the happiest. So I try to carve out time to do that every day. Yeah.
Well, I know, being a father of 2 little ones, I know your struggle with, we love them, but they, we're busy being fathers.
Speak for yourself, buddy.
Okay, right? Yeah, exactly. I can't speak for you. No. But I really do appreciate you carving out the time, and it was a pleasure to read Black Card. I'm gonna love to go back and read Zero Fade, and
thank you.
Black Card. Not just saying that would be a great TV show or a series or a movie. So we hope it makes it to the big time.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I know it ain't easy, and we're in a weird time now where it's hard to find any free time, but it's also like wild boring and there's nothing to do.
Exactly. Right.
It's a paradox. Yeah.
Congratulations and great luck on everything else in the future. Thanks again so much.
Thank you. Same to you.
Really
Episode 50.
Yes. I was trying to think of some sort of basketball player or football player or baseball player, or some sort of milestone to 50. 50 Cent. No.
Yeah, we got him. No. What do you get on your 50th wedding anniversary?
I was just going to say that. Is it silver or platinum?
Titanium. Yeah.
Maybe. Thanks again for listening, everyone, to episode 50 with Chris Terry. You can now subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Please leave a 5-star review. You can also ask for the podcast by name using Alexa. Find it on Spotify and on Amazon Music and on Stitcher, which is new. Follow me on Instagram, where I'm at Chills at Will Podcast, or on Twitter, where I'm at Chills at Will PO1. This is a passion project of mine, a DIY operation. and I'd love for your help in promoting what I'm convinced is a unique and spirited look at an often ignored art form. The intro song for the Chills of Will podcast is Wind Down instrumental version. And the other song played on the episode is Hoops instrumental by Matt Weidauer. And both songs are used through archesaudio.com. For now, thanks again for listening. And I hope that these quarantine days bring you texts by writers with mad skills like Chris L. Terry, whose work, Black Card, Zero Fade, give you chills at will.